Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the SportzMoose Media Podcast for the week. Ricky Dean along with Rick Burkette, as Rick joins me on the phone as he does every week as we talk about high school football in the Southwest Alabama area. Teams that we like to cover, teams from right here in our neck of the woods. And we're going to tell you about some teams that aren't playing this week to kick things off. The Flomaton Hurricanes, the T.R. Miller Tigers, and the W.S. Neal Blue Eagles, they all have a well-deserved midseason week off this week. Flomaton picked up a region win last Friday night as they took on XL, beat the XL Panthers by a score of 27-20. T.R. Miller won a Class 4A Region 1 game against Orange Beach by a score of 27-14, and the Neal Blue Eagles outscored Hillcrest Evergreen in Evergreen last Friday night by a score of 22-3. So, Rick, those three games are getting well-deserved breaks this week, kind of mid-season. They're going to take kind of like a season halftime break on this Friday night. And then they'll pick things up again next week as they continue region play. As teams, the regions are kind of sorting themselves out now, and teams are moving toward getting playoff berths and stuff like that. Not quite there yet, but they're starting to sort themselves out a little bit, and so those teams getting hard for me to say, well-deserved breaks, but there are some good games coming up this week that we will be covering.
That's right, and of course, during the practice, of course, we'll be covering that more game too, also this Friday night. But yeah, XL and Flomaton played a good game the other night. Flomaton came away with the W in a closely fought game all game long. XL's kind of had a rough schedule this year, also, and Flomaton doing real well with their 4-1 record. They need a weekend off before they start what will be a very tough schedule, because they'll wind up playing Thomasville after their week off, then W.S. Neal, which we'll be covering in East Bruton on the radio for WBZR, and then they have to they get Mobile Christian. So all these teams could use that weekend off.
Yeah, and it's coming, and like we said, not only is it a chance to just get a week off, but you and I covered the Hillcrest Evergreen game last week. They got a couple of kids injured. Not sure about their status as far as even the remainder of the season, but in a hard-hitting contest like what we witnessed the other night, it is a good opportunity to kind of give some guys a break on the year and get some of the injuries healed up, some of the bumps and bruises, kind of get them healed up as they get ready to move their way toward the last 5 or so games of the season as teams approach the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. And all three teams, I'm sure, appreciate the some teams don't, but most teams do have a middle of the season break like that, and I'm sure they're looking forward to it.
Well, what I've seen a lot of schools do, and I really kind of like the mid-season break better, but I've seen some schools, take that week off between, like maybe the last scheduled game of the year where they could be playing right there. They take that week off, which gives you a 2-week break between your last game and your first-round playoff game, and sometimes I think that has an effect on you where it can kind of bog you down a little bit.
Well, it can kind of break the continuity of your whole schedule, and but I mean, some people think it's good, some people think it's not. But I have noticed, like you just said, some of the teams are taking their week off the last game. So,
well, as we get started with teams that do have games this week, let's talk about JF Shields. The JF Shields Panthers, they lost again, and it was unfortunate. I was really hoping JF Shields was going to get a win when they went over to Fruitdale, but JF Shields comes up on the short end of the stick again against Fruitdale. Fruitdale beats them 20-12. It doesn't get any easier. We talked about this off the air. JF Shields next has Georgiana, and that Georgiana, we've seen them play against W.S. Neal. Georgiana's a good football team.
Yeah, I'm as you did too. I thought that they might pick up, and they almost did. I thought they might pick up their first win against Fruitdale over in Western Mobile County, but it turned out Fruitdale had not won either. They got their first one, but that Georgiana team, that's going to be tough for JF Shields, because that Georgiana team, we saw them play against W.S. Neal to open the season down in East Bruton when we were broadcasting the game, and they gave Neal all Neal wanted, and they're a 1A school. And since then, they have only given up 2 touchdowns. In fact, they've shut out the last 3 opponents in a row, which include some pretty good football teams, Florala, Kinston, and Houston County. So they have not given up a touchdown now in almost a month. So it's going to be a tough one for JF Shields.
Yeah, it'll be a tough one for JF Shields. I just don't know how they will handle all of what Georgiana brings to the table. Let's now look at Monroe Academy. Monroe Academy 2-4 on the year so far. They are 1-2 in AISA Class 3A Region 1. This week, the Volunteers take on Fort Dale Academy in a region game. That game will be played. Well, actually, I didn't even make a note. I'm not sure whether that's being played in Monroeville or whether they've got to go to Butler County and take on Fort Dale. But
I believe it's at Monroe Academy.
Okay, so Monroe Academy will be at home. So Fort Dale Academy's tough now. They're 4-1, and they're 2-1 in the region on the year, with their only loss being to undefeated Glenwood School up in Phoenix City. Glenwood, of course, we've seen them before back when we covered Scambia Academy. Glenwood's always got a good football team, and so that being the only team that they've lost to, Monroe Academy's just got to strap it on. The Volunteers got to strap it on against Fort Dale and just let the chips fall where they may.
That's right. And Monroe Academy has shown some they've won 2 games. They've shown that they can score points. It's just they need a little help on the defense. And even though Fort Dale is 4-1, they've also shown that they sometimes give up too many points too. So it could be a very good game. Of course, it will help them playing it in Monroe, which is a nice place to play football. Be a nice home game from there at Monroe Academy.
Big game going on this week right here in Monroe County. Speaking of Monroe County, the Battle of Monroe County takes place this week. It'll be 1-3 XL as they take on county rival J.U. Blackshear, the Bulldogs, this week in XL. XL lost to the Flomaton Hurricanes this past week, 27-20, in a battle of Alabama High School Athletic Association Class 3A Region 1 teams. J.U. Blackshear is 3-2. J.U. Blackshear jumped out of the box 3-0 on the year. They've lost their first 2 region games that they've had, so they're now 1-2 in Class 2A Region 1. They've lost 2 close region ball games since opening up 3-0. Blackshear lost to Chickasaw 28-26, and then they lost to St. Luke's, who was undefeated, 12-8. So, if you take Chickasaw, St. Luke's, and J.U. Blackshear and put them all together right there, if you played each other like a series of games, you very well, those teams could come out tied with each other. But the problem is you only play each other one time a season, and so far St. Luke's is kind of leading the region, and they've beat the other 2 teams. So you're looking at St. Luke's, probably Chickasaw being in there next, and then J.U. Blackshear is really in a fight for that 3rd spot, because in their region you've also got Clark County over there. So you've got some good teams that are all battling right there for those top 4 slots to try to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, J.U. Blackshear surprised us starting off 3-0, and they did it pretty convincingly too, and then took a really tough loss to Chickasaw down in Mobile and to St. Luke's, and but they were both very close games, and we had them picked to win both games. So this game against XL, of course, it is. It's a tough battle always, and that all the players know each other. Kind of a lot of them grew up playing different sports against each other, so it's going to be an equally. I think they'll be equally matched this Friday night. So and that rivalry doesn't need any extra juice anyhow. It kind of speaks for itself. So it'll be a good game Friday night.
Yeah, they'll be getting after each other for sure, and it'll be a big crowd on both sides. The folks from XL turn out to cheer for their Panthers, and of course the folks from URI will be headed over to XL from JU Blackshear, and they'll be wearing the purple and gold and cheering on the Bulldogs. That will be a big ball game here in Monroe County. As we continue looking at teams, Escambia Academy, they're struggling this year at 1-4 on the season. They will play in Hope Hall this Friday night. They got to go up and play Hooper Academy. The Cougars are averaging 25.4 points a game on offense, but they just, we talked about people needing to make defensive stops. We've talked about this. The Cougars can score a little bit, averaging almost 25.5 points a game, but when you're giving up 38.8 points a game, Hooper Academy's 3-0 on the year. They're coming off a heartbreaking loss to Crenshaw Christian Academy. That score was 34-32. So it could be a chance for Escambia Academy to pick up another win, but it's going to be a tough contest up there against Hooper.
Yeah, it's a game they can win, though. I mean, they can. I mean, they've got the offense to do it. A lot of the losses they had this year and even last year, they had the lead at halftime, even in the playoff game that you and I covered. It's just they seem to kind of fall apart a little bit, after the half. So they can just get the adjustments done at halftime and sort of change what they're doing in the first half a little bit, kind of throws the team off. It sounds like I'm trying to coach them, doesn't it? But there's something happening there. They're not getting the adjustments made that they want to make, or they're making the wrong adjustments, because a lot of the points the other teams are scoring against EA are coming in the second half. And I tell you what, just looking at Hooper also gives up a lot of points. And, of course, I think a lot of that's just the sort of the state of the sport these days, giving up too many points. A lot of teams just, it's like they just don't want to have to do what's necessary to make their defenses good, whether it's work hard enough or be tough enough or something. But I like the good defenses, and but anyhow, this game I think either team could win. I would say this is a toss-up. So best of luck to the Escambia Academy Cougars.
If you look at it, too, a lot of times when a team gives up more points than possibly they should in the second half, you've also, early in the year, you've got to think about the possibility of it being purely a conditioning issue. Maybe the kids aren't in as good a shape as they should be in, because they, you get in those second halves of these hot ball games and everything, and, the games start, especially the AISA games, they start earlier than the Alabama High School Athletic Association games. They start about a week earlier. And so when you're talking about starting ball games in the middle of August, because you and I talked about, opening night when we drove to go cover Neal on the radio, we drove all the way over there, and it was 103 degrees Fahrenheit in the truck as we were going, and that's tough temperatures to play football in. You know what I mean?
And one thing that you and I noticed is later in the game there was a lot of cramping going on, and 3 out of 4 of those cramping players were on the other side. And I won't name the team because we know Coach Hugh Fountain, and he has his team in shape. And, you bring up another interesting point, too. And we're not saying that EA's not in good shape. I don't think that's it. I just don't know. But I can tell you this. You can't hardly get in shape starting in August. Nowadays, they have to start, like a lot of the schools, Alabama started with the fourth quarter program. It's a year-round training thing. Faith Academy used to wear those shirts for their baseball team, and Coach Scota, 365 days a year, we don't have an off day. And that's the way a lot of sports are these days, but you don't have to go to that extent, I don't think. But you have to stay in shape year-round. If you just wait till August and fall camp to start trying to get in shape. It might be too late because the other team's been getting in shape, the whole year round, or at least since school started back after the Christmas break. But I don't know that that's the problem with them. But I know that giving up too many points, it sounds like something stating the obvious, Captain Obvious here. But you can't, if you're scoring a lot of points and you're 1-4 and it's your offense is averaging 30-something points a game and you're 1-4, then you got defensive problems. There's no doubt about it.
Well, our WBZR FM 105.9 high school game of the week this week is since we're off and are not covering WS Neal because Neal's taking the week off, our game is going to be at our old alma mater, the Escambia County High School Blue Devils, as they're celebrating homecoming this week at Herbert Barnes Stadium in Atmore. On Friday, the Blue Devils will be taking on Monroe County's Tigers. Coach Shannon Felder and his group will make the trip down from Monroeville. They'll visit Atmore, and the Blue Devils are having a good year. They're 4-1 on the year, 2-1 in 4A Region 1, and they defeated Wilcox Central this past week 41-20. Monroe County is 1-3, 0-3 in Class 3A Region 1, and they were beaten by we've talked about Mobile Christian, so there's no need to hang their head because there's going to be a lot of teams lose to Mobile Christian, but they lost this past Friday night by a score of 57-8 to Mobile Christian. But excited about getting the opportunity to go over and cover the Escambia County High School Blue Devils on homecoming week, and of course it'll be homecoming 2023, and all the alums from Escambia County High School, they'll be turning out to watch their Blue Devils play, and they're going to get to see a really good Blue Devil football team.
Yeah, it's not just – last year we saw an improved team, and they went 4-6 and started off the season 4-1 last year, I believe. But it's a different Blue Devil team this year. Last year we could tell they had some good defensive players. A couple of them went on to play – are playing college football right now. But this Blue Devil defense, led by Michael French and some of the other players there, they are a really good defense, and they played really good football this year. And on top of that, the offense is putting up some pretty gaudy numbers, averaging over 30 points a game, led by Jamarian Robinson, their quarterback. And they've got speed galore. I mean, Tay Henderson on the offense, a lot of them play defense too. I mean, those boys can run. I mean, they've got some of the best team speed that we've covered. And of course, it's always a pleasure and an honor to return to Herbert Barnes Stadium and being old Blue Devils, and we'll be pulling for them and broadcasting for them this Friday night.
Yeah, it'll be a good ball game, and the Blue Devils are looking to pick up their 5th win of the season and go 5-1. Of course, Monroe County is going to have something to say about that. So Coach Shannon Felder and his bunch, they'll go down there, and I'm sure that they will be more than ready to play and take on the Blue Devils as they get set for the homecoming festivities down there. Now, for the ball game, you can join myself and Rick as we broadcast from the game. We'll have all the exciting action on WBZR 105.9 FM in Atmore as the Blue Devils take on Monroe County. Airtime for us will be at 6:30, and then the kickoff for the game will be at 7 o'clock. That'll be on Hot Country 105.9 FM WBZR Atmore. We'll be glad to have you, and just hope you will tune in if you're in the Atmore area, and we'll listen to the broadcast, and just, hey, if you're at the game or whatever, come by the press box up there and shout at us and let us know you're there, and we're glad to speak, glad to see old friends when we go down there to Atmore.
It might even call their name out on the radio.
Never know whether they want us to or not. But anyway, that'll be,
some of them may not want us to.
That's right. It'll be a good night. It'll be a fun night. Now, let me kind of shift gears real quick and tell you about something else that Rick and I are doing. So we've got. Let me tell you a little bit about the the podcast that we're doing, the one that you're listening to right now, this podcast is available wherever you find podcasts. It's available on Boom Play, Player FM, Samsung Podcast, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn, as well as everywhere else. It's even available now on YouTube, which is pretty cool. So, but what we want you to do is we're going to shift gears, and we're going to add a different dimension to our kind of podcast that we're doing. We're going to do a college football podcast, and we're going to put it out, and it'll be available all the same places, but we're not going to commingle the two, okay? We're going to do a high school podcast for the local folks, and then we're going to kind of venture out and get a little broader, try to reach a little broader audience with talking about some college football, primarily those games in the Southeastern Conference. So that's going to be coming up as well. The podcast, we're excited about it. We're excited to kind of expand our reach, and we want you to be a part of that as we get that going. Like I say, this week we've got this one for the high school games. We're going to venture out. We're going to put out another one in a day or two, and it will be covering the Southeastern Conference games going on this week, as every school in the Southeastern Conference, all 14 of them, they play each other. So there's going to be 7 Southeastern Conference football games this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of them and try to put out another podcast for just the Southeastern Conference, just the college football this week. We want you to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend coming up. A lot of big games coming up this weekend, including our favorites, University of Alabama and Auburn University. Both have big games this weekend, so looking forward to that.
So with that being said, we're going to wrap things up for tonight, and I'm going to get this thing put out where it needs to go. I'm so thankful that you guys tuned in and listened to us tonight. And don't forget, you can find the SportzMoose Media Podcast wherever podcasts are available. Rick, thank you so much for joining me, buddy, and I'll holler back at you in a day or so, and we'll record the Southeastern Conference version of this, and we'll try to put another one out and see how that works for us. How about that?
All right, Ricky, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.